Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Tuesday, February 20th, 2024. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Corporations pledge billions of dollars to black folks in the wake of the death of George Floyd, yet they've barely spent any of that money. One of the folks demanding that they actually stand with their commitments, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts. She joins us to talk about that as well as some other issues. Also, folks, huge day for the Biden-Harris administration, announcing some $6 billion for clean water. Vice President Kamala Harris unveils that in Pittsburgh. She also pays a surprise visit to some workers who are replacing lead pipes. Hashtag, we tried to tell you. We told y'all what was going to happen if that crazy right-wing Jeff Landry was picked as governor of Louisiana. A lot of black folks stayed at home. Now he is targeting New Orleans, and they are literally trying to pass some 30 crime bills in one day. We'll talk to a Louisiana state rep. Also, the Nazis took over the streets of Nashville over the weekend. State Representative Gloria Johnson, running for the United States Senate, will join us to talk about their racist demonstration. Plus, the Poor People's Campaign. They're gearing up for their voter mobilization plan taking place in 30-plus states between now and November. Plus, 2 men have been charged with last week's mass shooting during the Kansas City Chiefs celebration. We'll tell you about that. Nigeria is facing an economic crisis, making it hard for folks to buy food. National security and foreign policy expert will join us to discuss what's happening in Nigeria. It is time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Being frozen out.
Facing an extinction level event.
We don't fight this fight right now, you're not going to have black-owned media. Y'all often hear me talking about where is the money, not just when it comes to the ad agencies and big corporations spending some $340 billion on an annual basis. It's also when companies make these pledges to black folks, and it's really about PR as opposed to fulfilling their promises. Well, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts has been pushing corporations to actually do that. So many people made billions of dollars in commitments in the wake of the death of George Floyd. And you know what's happened since then? They fired a bunch of DEI people, many of them are pulling back from those commitments. So was it real or was it all talk? Congresswoman Pressley joins us right now. Glad to have you back on the show. How you doing?
It's great to be with you, Roland, always. That theme song is a vibe. I just need to say that.
Well, you could thank In Vogue. When I had my TV One show, I reached out to them and to do the theme show, and so the folks at TV One like, well, we think it sounds dated, and I was like, y'all chose some bland ass canned news music. So when I did this show, they have actually gifted me that song, and they said because of what I do for the community, and so we get to get a little funky every day playing that theme song. So shout out to Terry and Cindy for doing that. So definitely glad you like it. Let's get to it. Let's talk about the money. all of these folks, all of these companies, I mean, they made announcements, issued press releases, posted things on social media, and I've seen some estimates that it's as low as $30 billion, as high as $100 billion commitments that were made. And the people who've tried to track these things, I know I've called on different HBCU business departments, the NAACP, the Urban League, and others to actually track these commitments. Bottom line is, it was a bunch of hot air.
Well, Roland, let me just first say thank you for having me on. This is Black History Month, but it's Black History every day on your show, and indeed, Black-owned media does matter. I also just want to explain that my oversight effort is specific to my role on the Financial Services Committee, of which I'm seated. So my letter and my outcry and my demand for the receipts is specific to the financial services industry and to banking, which has played a huge role in the oppression and marginalization of Black folk. The Congressional Black Caucus, of which I'm a proud member, is doing a similar accountability measure that is focused on corporations. But so far as my efforts, I put out a public letter to the 5 biggest banks, banks like J.P. Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Citi, Wells Fargo, and I asked them, requested of them, well, actually, I was a little bit firmer than that, demanded that...
you didn't just ask, you demanded.
Demanded that they provide me with a comprehensive audit of their efforts. Because as you allude to, at the height of Black Lives Matter and the murder of George Floyd, they made commitments of racial equity to the tune of $32.5 billion with a B dollars.
Just those 5?
Yes.
232 billion?
No, 32.5.
Sorry, 32.5 billion. Got it.
32.5 billion. Now, the racial wealth gap is $10 trillion, okay? But because they made these racial equity pledges, we wanted this comprehensive audit so that we could comb through it and see if they kept it. Because, personally, anecdotally, I certainly have not felt the impact of $32.5 billion. When you talk about a racial reckoning, that is something that's commensurate to the harm that's been caused. And we have not felt that. So my team has worked hard to comb through these 200 plus pages. They did actually respond. They responded according to the deadline. And so we're just finalizing that analysis. But I will share with you in my quick read, we have seen some strides made when it comes to investments in housing opportunities, and I'm going to continue to push them on that. But what I'm looking for from our financial institutions, because of the harm that they've caused with the systemic denial of mortgage loans, of denial of loans to Black small business, of the redlining of whole neighborhoods and communities, is for them to undo centuries of harm and to chart a different path forward. That's not only about the external investments that they make, it's also about the institutional changes that they must make. In Massachusetts, Roland, 230 bank branches have been closed. In the city of Boston alone, there have been well over 30. Now, that has a residual impact since many people rely only on public transportation or only are able to only do their business in cash. Boston, 10% of our community is unbanked and 20% of it is underbanked. So they have closed numerous bank branches. I want them to reopen those branches. I also want to see Black folks promoted to positions of leadership. I also want them to eliminate overdraft fees, and I want them to expand language access. So that's where we are right now. We'll be, rolling out a more formal reporting of our findings in these 200 plus pages that they sent us as we finalize our analysis of this data in the disaggregate.
What was interesting here is that when you talk about that particular number, J.P. Morgan alone pledged $30 billion. to racial equity. I know PNC Bank, I think, did $1 billion. I was looking here. This is the Market Watch story. Go to my iPad, y'all, of J.P. Morgan and what their commitment was, that $30 billion. And, you know, just recently, Jamie Dimon, their CEO, renewed his commitment to DEI, you know, but the question, as we always say, proof in the pudding. I can tell you, I've been dealing with them for 3 years on advertising with Black-owned media and have gotten nowhere but, you know, meetings and emails going back and forth. U.S. Bank, they actually, a couple of years ago, a year later, released this showing that they actually increased by $100 million their investment in Black-owned companies and some other things that they did as well. But to your point, the proof is in the pudding. Matter of fact, when I met with General Motors 2021, I told their then CMO, Deborah Wall, I will never praise you for press releases. I will praise you and credit you when I see direct deposits. And that's what this boiled down to. Where are the direct deposits into Black communities by these financial services companies, and not buying tables at NAACP Freedom Fund dinners?
Exactly, and that's why, you know, we're so grateful for how you righteously steward your platform to call folks out, because we have to keep the pressure up.
And so, have these 5 institutions, have they all responded?
They've all responded, and they all responded within the time that we outlined. So they met the deadline, and again, they submitted some 200-plus pages of response, and so we're in the final stages of that analysis.
And you know, one of the things that, and your letter, you know, may have covered this, and one of the things that what I've been doing, what I've made clear, that when I'm talking to these corporations, I'm not just advocating just for Black-owned media. My whole point is, I want to see, look, you use transportation companies are using Black transportation companies. They got catering companies they're using. They're using audio and visual companies. They're using all these different services that we often get completely left out. One of the biggest areas of many of these banks and others are in the professional services areas. And so, look, they have outside law firms, outside accounting firms, you name it, and many of them use no Black law firms, no Black accounting firms. And so, I think the problem for a lot of people when they think in terms of corporations, they just think, oh, construction or stuff like that. It's like, no, there's a way to do this where you are empowering these businesses. But the problem is when we can't grow and achieve scale, then we also can't hire people.
Absolutely. So all of this comes back to economic justice, which is racial justice.
Yep.
And we so often reference that March on Washington. We cannot forget that it was a march for jobs and freedom, the type of freedom that comes from economic justice. We have a $10 trillion racial wealth gap. That's not just Black folks' problem. That's everybody's problem. So we want the receipts and we want to feel the impact. And so that's why, again, we have to continue to keep the pressure up. And I will continue to conduct my own oversight of these financial institutions. And one other thing, Roland, recently I was appointed to the Artificial Intelligence Task Force, specifically focused on our financial institutions. And I'm also closely monitoring this because as we move to AI, think about the impact of AI on things like credit screenings or loan approval. And there are already biases within these algorithms. So I will be very closely monitoring to make sure that what has already been a systemic pattern of discrimination, that those denials are not perpetuated by AI. If you see a pattern, you know, we're very concerned. If you see a pattern in those denials, let's say for a credit screening, there's no explainability. What is your recourse when it's AI?
Absolutely.
So these are all the things that I'm closely following.
I do want to get your comment on the announcement today by the Biden-Harris administration of some $6 billion when it comes to clean water, when it comes to pipes, when it comes to the environment. That has a particular impact on African Americans. We know about the Flint water crisis. It'll be 10 years, the anniversary in April, what has been happening in Jackson, Mississippi. But we have these issues all across the country in many of our neighborhoods.
Yes, environmental racism, environmental injustice. These are the sorts of investments that are necessary. equitable investments. This is a matter of public health. And, even just today, I was at an event where we were, offering some community project funding to the tune of $750,000 specific to climate resiliency, because we know when it comes to extreme weather and sea level rise, that those frontline communities of Black and brown folks are the most vulnerable. So we deserve clean water. We deserve clean air. We have so many illnesses and health disparities as a result of environmental injustices and even from political neglect.
Absolutely. And lastly, what is your take on a lot of the heat that elected officials, especially Democrats, especially African Americans, are getting with what Texas has been doing and Florida has been doing, Abbott and DeSantis shipping migrants to other parts of the country, resources being applied to it. This is causing a lot of dissension in a lot of these communities. And while all of this is happening, you have Republicans in Congress who still refuse to do anything about a border security bill.
Right. Well, I would say that Massachusetts is right up there with cities like New York and Chicago, to name a few. I co-chair the House Haiti Caucus, and so what we have specifically seen here in Massachusetts is not only new arrivals, those seeking asylum from Central America, but is also those from Haiti, many who have come by way of Chile. And so this is a humanitarian crisis, but I think it's important, Roland, to note that this is a crisis 30 years in the making. The consequence of U.S. foreign policy, of climate change that has contributed to this destabilization. And when you think about what I was at a new arrival center today, and there were 51 children there under the age of 5. So if you think about families in this harrowing journey with their babies, if they are willing to subject themselves to that, imagine what conditions they are coming from. So this is a humanitarian crisis. It is a national humanitarian crisis. Again, the consequence of U.S. foreign policy and our failure over these 30 years to pass comprehensive immigration reform because the system is currently unjust. And I have to say this, Roland, that it has a disparate impact on Black and brown communities, migrants. It's not just the Latino community. Again, I co-chair the House Haiti Caucus. I represent the third largest Haitian diaspora in the country. And so that is, we have been receiving for many, many months new arrivals that are Haitian. So it's really important that we see these work permits expedited. When I was at the new arrival center today in Chelsea, so many people were just saying, we just want to work. We just want jobs. And so we have got to expedite those work authorization, those EADs. And we do have a commitment from the Biden administration to expedite those from 90 days to 30 days in the processing. And I do want to say, in terms of the pushback on this, look, Black Lives Matter, period. Black Lives Matter globally. So that includes these Haitian migrants. And here in Massachusetts, which is a right to shelter state, and in the city of Boston and the community of Roxbury specifically, predominantly a Black community, people have said, we want to have a humane response. We want to welcome these folks, and we want to make sure that we are not being deprived resources that are essential to our survival and to our thriving. And I really reject these unjust binary choices. We can receive new arrivals, and we can meet the needs of community that is already here.
All right, then. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, always a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Roland.
Folks, going to go to a break. We come back. We'll chat about this with my panel and talk about other news of the day. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network. Back in a moment.
You heard why we're marching, and it's really a launch. It's not even a march. We're launching. That's right. A 42-week campaign. March the 2nd. At 10 o'clock in Raleigh and 33 other state capitals and the District of Columbia. This is a historic move to mobilize the most powerful untapped block of voters in this country. That's right. Poor and low wealth voters who make up 87 million votes. And it's never been tried before. Never been tried before in history. At the same time, the same message, same focus. And when that power turns loose, they will not be able to figure out the political calculus. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to shake things up. I'm ready to get up out of the valley. I'm ready for God to put his spirit on us. I'm ready to be used to change this nation. And what we're saying is, can't we come together? Can't we come together around an agenda? You ain't got to like everything about Rembaba. You don't have to like everything about Sangria. You don't have to like everything about Long Choir. But can we come together and say, it's time to end poverty as the fourth leading cause of death? It's time to have $15 and a living wage indexed with inflation. So every time inflation goes up, the minimum wage goes up. It's time to have health care for all. It's time to fully fund public education. Can't we come together? It's time to protect women's right to women's health. It's time to have affordable housing for everybody. It's time to stop the proliferation of guns. Ain't no way folk ought to be able to have more guns than they have food, more guns than they have meat on their table. That makes no sense. Isn't it time for division to be ended and love to take over? Can't we organize around that? Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I don't need to like everything about you, but can't we organize for power? Can't we stand for justice? Can't we love everybody for just a little while? Can't we come up out of the valley? Can these bones live?
John Murray, the executive producer of the new Sherry Shepherd Talk Show.
This is your boy, Earthquake.
And you're tuned in to
Roland Martin, Unfiltered.
All right, folks, Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, former senior advisor for environmental justice at the EPA, joins me from Washington, D.C. shortly. Randy Bryant, DEI disruptor out of D.C. Randy's here. Yeah, you were running around doing something, and you didn't think we were coming back so fast. You hopped back in that chair. Glad to have you. So, Randy, I'll start with you. You have been doing different videos talking about companies and DEI and who's doing these things right and doing it wrong. Bottom line is, it was a bunch of bull crap with a lot of these companies, and it was all PR. A lot of them were not serious, and this is why they should be getting pressure from the Congressional Black Caucus, from the NAACP, from the National Urban League, from the National Action Network, from Rainbow Push, from the Executive Leadership Council, the EOC, from the Black Economic Alliance, from the U.S. Black Chamber, Inc., and I don't give a damn if any of these companies are sponsors of these organizations. These folks should be held to their feet to the fire for the promises they made and promises that have not been kept.
That's absolutely correct, 100%, and they should be held accountable by us, the everyday person. These companies came out with these huge PR statements saying that they were going to beef up DEI at their companies and pledged a lot of money to work on equity and diversity and inclusiveness at their companies. And I would say the vast majority have done barely anything. It was they lied. I mean, there's nothing else that we can say, but they lied and have not come through on their promises and have actually gone backwards and are doing less than they did prior to George Floyd's murder, prior to their promises. I mean, they have completely dissolved of their DEI departments and are not spending the money. And they're not spending the money to ensure that people are getting paid or promoted. So it is, I am outraged, quite frankly, and I'm doing what I can to call them out on it. I want to, just as they wanted to get publicity and lie about what they were going to do, I'm going to give them as much publicity as I can to let the world know that they have not done what they promised.
But see, this is where it's important to apply pressure.
Right.
Mustafa. This is where we have to understand what Ida B. Wells Barnett understood, what others understood when it came to shining the light of truth upon them. And that's the problem. And so our black organizations have got to be activated to do the work and to challenge these folks.
Without a doubt. It's the only way there's ever any real accountability. That was always, for me, the greatest challenge, was that people are saying the right things, but what is the accountability? What's the leverage points that we utilize to make sure that people follow through on the promises that they made? We've seen historically, from people saying 40 acres and a mule to when our dear brother George Floyd lost his life, that people have always made promises to the black community, but very rarely have they ever lived up to them. So what do we do in this moment? I believe that, yes, we make sure that our organizations are doing what they're supposed to do to, one, put a spotlight on these issues and to push them to actually do the right thing. The other part of it is, for me, and I live this in my own life, is I do not invest in organizations that do not invest in the black community. So we have to start making some decisions also when folks are showing us who they are, if we are going to continue to fund our own oppression. And what I mean by that is that we continue to go out and support these entities that continue to do the wrong thing. So we just talked about or touched on them moving backwards in relationship to DEI and a number of other issues. But where's the outcry? Where are we saying that if you continue to make these types of movements, we're going to remove our dollars from your bottom lines? We're going to also engage with not only your board members, but also shareholders. We should have folks actually going to those shareholder meetings and making sure that we are keeping a spotlight on this. So it is a multi-pronged set of actions that we have to do, but it comes back to the dollar. Making sure that we're getting the dollar, and when we don't get that dollar, that we are removing our dollars from their process.
Here's a perfect example, Randy. And so a week or so ago in the New York Times, the AME Church announced, the African Methodist Episcopal Bishops' Council announced that they are demanding the United States end aid going to Israel. And they talked about how they're going to be activating their churches. Now, let me be perfectly clear. I have no problem with them doing that. I have no problem with them making that statement. I have no problem with them applying that pressure to the Biden-Harris administration. But where is the AME Church? Where is the National Baptist Convention USA? Where is Kojic? Where, I can go down the line. Why are they not using their power to flex and tell corporate America, you are to do right by black folks with the promises that you made? Why are they not standing with us in black-owned media demanding that these companies commit to resources going to black-owned media companies? And again, every single one of these black groups, Black Economic Alliance, the ELC, the NAACP, the National Urban League, Rainbow Push, National Action Network. I can go on and on. Yes, Alpha Phi Alpha, AKAs, Deltas, Kappas, Omegas, Sigmas, Zetas, Iotas, Prince Hall Mason, Link Eastern Star, the Links as well. What is the point of having the Boule, Sigma Pi Phi Fraternity Incorporated? What's the point of having black organizations where we meet and talk about how big we are and what we're doing as the D9 and other groups if we're not on this issue demanding the money?
Fear. I believe that it's easier for us to support the causes that we know the majority culture will support us on. Unfortunately, advocating for ourselves, advocating for black civil rights is controversial. Even saying something as simple as Black Lives Matter or, do what you promised you were going to do is controversial. And our organizations oftentimes, I believe, avoid any type of confrontation. They avoid, they want to be accepted. And I believe it's fear. I believe it's hard for us to go the opposing way. And it's sad that arguing for ourselves is controversial. I believe that we have got to realize our power. We have to take back our power and then use it instead of always looking for the respect or the validation of the majority culture.
Well, I just think, Mustafa, that we've got to understand really the big picture. CNBC did analysis, Mustafa, and they put the number at $350 billion in commitments. That $350 billion. Folks have heard me talk about, on the media side, $340 billion was spent in 2023. If black-owned media got 0.5 to 1% of that. So we're talking total, all black-owned media, we got about $3 billion. If that number gets pushed to 10%, that's $34 billion annually coming to black-owned businesses. Who do black-owned media hire? Black people. Where are we based? Black communities. Where's our money invested? Black communities. And so this is where black organizations have got to speak up louder. And again, I do not care if said companies are writing checks, philanthropic checks, to the civil rights organizations or these black business groups. If black people are getting laid up by the time they're 55, if they're being phased out, if we're not getting contracts, and we're not seeing the communities, what the hell is it? And yes, I need black board members, Mustafa, black board members to stop sitting here and getting paid themselves and sending their kids to private school and living a great life, and black people not being able to participate in the larger economy.
You know, it goes back to community. We often use that word, not really understanding how powerful it is and the responsibility that is a part of those sets of letters. So if we truly care about community, then that means that we're not just looking out for ourselves and trying to actually benefit, but we're actually, you know, very focused on the change that can happen inside of the broader community if these dollars, let me change that. Not if, when these dollars, because we're going to get engaged, are actually invested. Now, here's the other part, Roland, you know, and I know that there are still some individuals and some powerful board members whom are okay with receiving a tiny percentage to be able to host, as you've said, you know, whether it is some of the conferences or summits or other types of things, and are willing to take the crumbs from the table, as Malcolm once talked about. And we have to just make the decision that we're going to change that dynamic, and that we're going to make sure that the rightful dollars are coming back to our community so that we can build infrastructure inside of our community, so that we can make sure that banks that actually come from our community are being supported. You know, there's a laundry list of things that we can do to change the dynamics inside of our communities that would help us to heal. But we have to be willing to do this hard work of holding folks accountable, and not just in the moment. Far too often, something bad will happen. We'll get folks who are activated for a moment, and then there's no long-term strategic plan to make sure that real change happens. And of course, a number of our organizations can play a major role in that, but coming out of the grassroots movement, I also believe that the individual also has responsibility to continue to also push. So it is hopefully a communal set of efforts to make sure that we're getting the resources that are necessary. We just can't allow people to lie. We can't allow people to just get our vote without there being anything tied to it. And we can no longer allow the disinvestment that has traditionally happened in our country to continue.
And look, I'll tell you, Randy, when I was at Essence Festival last summer, I ran into Michael Hyder, who is the president and CEO of the ELC, Executive Leadership Council. This is the group of the corporate black folks in this country who are part of ELC. And I've said to Michael, in the history of this country, we ain't got nothing without pressure. You can't show me where folk did the right thing unless they were called out, unless there was pressure. That is the only way this is going to actually happen. Randy, these companies must be called out individually. They must be placed, their logos put up on all social media channels. They must be called out on radio, on television, on digital platforms. They must be exposed for their lack of commitment, their lack of work, and their lack of deposits.
Yes, they must be called out loudly, boldly, and consistently over and over again until they are so embarrassed. They're not going to do it on their own. They're not going to do it out of the kindness of their hearts. When have Black folks ever been saved because of white kindness or corporate kindness? It has to be pressure, and we must all apply it. And I'm 100% behind that plan. That's what has to be done. And we can't do it by coddling up to them, ensuring, having these wonderful relationships. It has to be either you do this or we're going to let everyone know that you did not do it. And we're going to continue to let people know. And we're going to tell our people not to buy your products, not to bank at your banks, unless you do right by us, unless you show us that you will stand up to your commitments, which is what we should all expect. And we cannot, as a community, like Mustafa said, we cannot think individually. We don't have the luxury to think as individuals and be happy when a few of us have made it. We must always think as a community.
And lastly, for the Black board members who are quiet, y'all deserve to be called out. For the Black CEOs who don't do a damn thing, they deserve to be called out. The Black chief marketing officers who don't do a damn thing, they deserve to be called out. The Black senior executives of these corporations who are there and not doing anything deserve to be called out. And yes, the Black organizations that are quiet and who spend more time, as Biggie said, on party and bullshit, they also deserve to be called out too. Now is not the time for people to say they represent Black people, yet when it's time to fight for what's ours, they're silent. Silence means complicity. And if these folks are not ponying up the money and Black organizations are quiet, that means they've been successfully bought off and they qualify as the least expensive Negro. Going to a break, when we come back, we're going to talk about what's happening in Nigeria, where they're having a significant economic crisis. Shouldn't be, considering all of the oil that is pumped there. They should be doing a hell of a lot better. We'll talk about that. Also, we want y'all to support us in what we do by joining our Bring the Funk fan club. Folks, I go to the mailbox at least once every 2 weeks. And for all of y'all who don't believe in the digital currency, yes, y'all have sent me all of these checks and money orders. So I got to go through this. I got to open up every envelope, fill them out. But guess what? It's real money, and I appreciate it. And so if y'all want to support us in what we do, please do so by joining our Bring the Funk fan club. Send your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
For the last 15 or maybe 16 years, 18 years, I'll say, since when I moved to L.A., I hadn't had a break. I hadn't had a vacation, probably a week vacation here or there. Right. This year, after I got finished doing Queen Sugar and we wrapped it out, because I knew I had 2 TV shows coming on at the same time, so I'm going to take a little break. So I've been on break for the first time, and I can afford it now. Praise God. You know what I'm saying? Right. So I can afford it. I'm like, I can sit back and ain't got nothing to worry about, man. But this was the first time in almost in 2 decades that I've actually had time to sit back and smell the roses.
On the next A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie, we're talking all things mental health and how helping others can help you. We all have moments where we have struggles, and on this week's show, our guests demonstrate how helping others can also help you. why you should never stop giving and serving others on a next A Balanced Life here on Black Star Network.
Farquhar, executive producer, Proud Family. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
In Nigeria, hundreds took to the streets to demonstrate against the increasing cost of living in that particular country. Nigeria is in the midst of an economic crisis. Soaring prices have left many people struggling to afford food. The Nigerian Red Cross Society declared the country's hunger crisis has reached an alarming state. Nigeria is Africa's most populous nation with more than 200 million people. The country has been plagued by high unemployment for decades due to a rapid population rise that has outpaced economic growth. National security and foreign policy expert Asha Castleberry-Hernandez joins us from D.C. Asha, glad to have you here. Look, when we talk about what's happening around the world, we've discussed what's happening in the Congo. We discussed what's happening in other African nations like Nigeria. It doesn't even remotely get the attention like Israel, Gaza, Ukraine. Why?
Thank you for having me today. Because it always has been treated as a deprioritization when it comes to international peace and security. It is not ranked as a top priority in the international community to address. However, there is this emerging discussion that, looking in the future of the economy, that, Africa has the top world's fastest economies in the world. So you're starting to see where it's becoming more of a prioritization. And we've seen that with regards to African policy in the current administration right now, in the Biden administration. So there is a level of taking more of an approach looking into a U.S.-Africa policy. But then again, we are still seeing where Africa policy is still ranked below to address overall. And let's just be quite frank, it's because it's a Black continent. And so that's part of the reason why you're seeing it doesn't get as much attention.
And one of the things that we often hear, people have to recognize, we always hear the phrase, in the interest of American security or American national security or an American interest. But I thought we love Nigerian oil.
Yes, and we do when it comes to our economy. But unfortunately, when you rank those oil-based countries, as far as looking at America investing in that industry, Nigeria is not ranked up there when you look at the Middle East countries or other countries like Russia, where we are investing a lot more when it comes to their oil industry. So that's why you see also play out that it tends to be ranked below compared to our other oil partners. Mm-hmm.
So what exactly do you think should be happening?
Well, right about now, I strongly believe that there should be a strong judicial reform happening in Nigeria, where it pretty much addresses the issues involving institutional reform. There needs to be more accountability when it comes to monetary policy. Unfortunately, what we're seeing right now with the current administration in Nigeria, there's been a failure in terms of monetary policy implementation, where as a result of removal of the petroleum subsidies, that pretty much devastated the local economy. And then also there's a mixture of corruption. So we have to, the local government has to address that issue in terms of bringing in implement healthier policies in terms of economics so they can achieve stability, because there's significant instability going on right now. And I must underscore too, this has to be addressed by overall the international community, because instability in Nigeria is a threat to West Africa. And because it's been known to be the largest and strongest economy for quite some time. That is not only a threat to its sovereign state, but also to the region. And no one can afford that right now in terms of the world economy. So we need some international intervention. We're helping to institute better democratic instability. And with that being said, we need to make sure judicial reform is in place, working very closely with institutions to help address the failure from monetary policies that's supported by the current administration.
Questions from our panel. Randy, you first.
So many questions. I've been watching some of the videos of what's going on. I mean, how do we as individuals here help?
Yes, thank you so much. Well, first and foremost, it's important to bring awareness to this issue. It is extremely devastating to see such a well-known, largest economy in Africa just pretty much plummet. And also, we have to bring to the government, like the House Committee on Foreign Relations, the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations, saying we would like to address this issue as much as possible and supporting Nigeria, making sure they work very closely with the Nigerian administration right now as far as how can they better address this issue. So that's important to note. And then also bring awareness and more better recommendations to, like, for instance, right now, the Biden administration has what we call the African Leadership Summit Implementation Plan. Well, part of that plan, we should have a strong economic, policy recommendation, being able to deliver that or present that to Nigeria and not just Ghana, because there was a lot more emphasis on Ghana versus Nigeria, but be able to give them some sort of consultation and work very closely with them. We're doing that right now with Kenya. The Kenyan president is coming to the United States soon to meet with President Biden. So, there tends to be some more attention towards certain African countries over others, but we definitely need to be more forthcoming with as far as addressing this issue in Nigeria and working very closely with the government.
Mustafa.
Well, sister, it's good to see you again. Maybe you could help us. So I've worked with a few African leaders over the years on environmental issues and revitalization issues. So we know that we know that Nigeria has about 28 billion barrels of oil. They have about 160 trillion cubic tons of natural gas. So normally that would be a strong leveraging point. It's not things that I hope folks ever have to use. Can you talk a little bit about both the IMF and the World Bank and the role that they have played in the lack of infrastructure inside of Nigeria or in the greater context of the continent?
Yes, thank you for that question. Well, first and foremost, looking back at the current administration's decision to pull or remove the petroleum subsidies, I think looking at that point, that's critical to note that there was some poor consultation going on within government and a lack of consultation or advice from the World Bank or IMF saying that if you do this, this is going to devastate the local currency, which we're seeing right now. This is also, inflation is going to go up. Giving them some sort of warning that this is not a good decision. Now, we saw that somewhat a little from the United Nations, where when the removal happened over the summer, there was a lot of speculation or recommendations to the Nigerian government saying, do not do this. This is going to really, devastate the economy. Cost of living is going to go up. The local currency is going to plummet. But again, the international community didn't do too much in terms of intervention and being able to, discourage the Nigerian government from making this decision. So again, the current administration felt like if we do this, this is going to help the infrastructure development projects we're having going on, as well as education and the healthcare system. So I don't think the IMF and World Bank did enough to help the situation.
All right. Asha, we appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Welcome.
Folks, taking a break. When we come back, Vice President Kamala Harris unveils the administration's $6 billion effort to fix the clean water crisis in the nation. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Be sure to download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. You can also watch us, folks, every day on Amazon News by going to Amazon Fire. You can also tell Alexa to play news from the Black Star Network. You can also watch our 24-hour, 7-day-a-week streaming channel on Plex TV, Amazon Freevee, and Amazon Prime Video. And don't forget to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, available at bookstores nationwide. Get the audio version, that's me reading, on Audible. Back in a moment.
You heard why we're marching, and it's really a launch. It's not even a march. We're launching
That's right.
a 42-week campaign. March the 2nd at 10 o'clock in Raleigh and 33 other state capitals and the District of Columbia. This is a historic move to mobilize the most powerful untapped block of voters in this country. That's right. Poor and low wealth voters who make up 87 million votes. And it's never been tried before. Never been tried before in history. At the same time, the same message, same focus. And when that power turns loose, they will not be able to figure out the political calculus. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to shake things up. I'm ready to get up out of the valley. I'm ready for God to put his spirit on us. I'm ready to be used to change this nation. And what we're saying is, can't we come together? Can't we come together around an agenda? You ain't got to like everything about Reverend Barbara. You don't have to like everything about Sangria. You don't have to like everything about Long Choir. But can we come together and say, it's time to end poverty as the fourth leading cause of death? It's time to have $15 and a living wage indexed with inflation. So every time inflation goes up, the minimum wage goes up. It's time to have health care for all. It's time to fully fund public education. Can't we come together? It's time to protect women's right to women's health. It's time to have affordable housing for everybody. It's time to stop the proliferation of guns. Ain't no way folk ought to be able to have more guns than they have food, more guns than they have meat on their table. That makes no sense. Isn't it time for division to be ended and love to take over? Can't we organize around that? Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I don't need to like everything about you, but can't we organize for power? Can't we stand for justice? Can't we love everybody for just a little while? Can't we come up out of the valley? Can these bones live?
Me, Sherry Shepard, with Sammy Roman.
I'm Dr. Robin B., pharmacist and fitness coach, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Vice President Kamala Harris was in Pittsburgh today announcing the nearly $6 billion in funding for clean water infrastructure nationwide. She was joined by the EPA Administrator Michael Regan at the Kingsley Association Community College Center to say Pennsylvania is going to get $200 million of the $5.8 billion to ensure everyone can access clean water.
It is. Can you believe that in the United States of America, that is still not necessarily guaranteed to all people to access clean water? And so I'm here today to announce some of the work that we have all been doing together over many years that is righting this wrong. Because I think we all believe that every person in America has a right to clean water. And yet today, across our nation, for far too many Americans, that right is under threat for a variety of reasons. One being, of course, when we think about the climate crisis and how that has impacted people across the West, millions of people who have endured historic droughts. In fact, when I visited Lake Mead 2 years ago, the water level was at the lowest it had ever been. And Lake Mead supplies clean water to 25 million people in California and Arizona and Nevada. Let's think about what has been happening in the South, where even moderate flooding can overwhelm sewage systems and contaminate drinking water. In fact, one woman I visited with told me that when her backyard floods, she can hear sewage flowing underneath her floorboards. And as a result, too many communities across the South, we've seen a rise in infections like hookworm, which are basically, I see people nodding, tiny parasites that burrow into the skin and cause fever and nausea and abdominal pain. So this is a serious issue. It is a serious issue with serious health implications, not to mention just basic points about what we need to do to address inequities. The $200 million now coming to Pennsylvania can be used to replace old water mains across the state, and also could be used to upgrade storm drains and prevent floods during the heavy rains, like the floods that you saw in downtown Pittsburgh just a few weeks ago. So when President Biden and I talk about why we do what we do, it is to deliver in a way that is about real results for real people. It's about understanding the constraints and the burdens that families face, that working people face, for some basic things, like having access to clean water, and what we know we can do together to actually fix these longstanding problems. And in addition, part of the beauty of what we have all done together is these investments will create jobs, good-paying union jobs, jobs for plumbers and pipe fitters and laborers, jobs for the workers of Plumbers Local 27 here in Pittsburgh. And it comes down to this. In the United States of America, every person should be able to have clean water. I shouldn't have to say that. But it does come down to that. Every person should have a right and the ability to have access to clean water. And it should not matter where you live or how much money you earn or how much money you got in your back pocket. And with the help of all of the leaders here, we are building a future then where clean water will be a reality for all.
Mustafa, about half of these resources are going to go to disadvantaged communities. And over the weekend, I had a back and forth with Black conservative Sonny Johnson, who said that, oh, out of all of this money on the infrastructure bill and the green bill, she literally said none of that money is going to Black communities. And I was like, well, that's a lie. It's a flat-out lie. And I said, I've literally traveled the country talking to people, talking to local elected officials, talking about those projects. You are very much involved in that environmental space. And so when Sonny Johnson says none of the money from Biden's green energy bill is going to Black communities, then you have this clean water bill, this clean water allocation here of $6 billion. What do you say to folks like her and others who say they're doing nothing for Black people when it comes to the environment?
Well, I tell them that what they're sharing is false, or if I was going to be real honest, I'd say you're telling a damn lie. That doesn't mean that everything that this administration needs to be doing, they have done, but they are moving in the right direction in many aspects. We know we've got about 10 million lead pipes that need to be taken out and replaced. And I think there's been about 4 million that have already been done underneath of this administration. Why is that important? You had raised Flint, Michigan earlier, Benton Harbor, Jackson, Mississippi. I can go on and on of all these Black communities that have been dealing with lead poisoning and the babies and children who have had to deal with the effects of that because folks continue to drag their feet decade after decade after decade. So this administration is finally making sure that some of those changes are actually happening. They have also got worker training programs that are in place. And I could call out a list of organizations, Black organizations, that are actually receiving resources to help train folks on how to address many of the things that are happening in the water quality space. There are all these different examples of how these investments are making it back to Black communities. But I also always make sure that I'm giving real talk. We need $1 trillion to actually make sure that we have the infrastructure in this country that everybody can drink safe and affordable water, as Miss Monica would say in Detroit, with Detroiters working for, we the people of Detroit. So we're moving in the right direction. And Black folks who want to are playing a role in helping to make that change happen. And we still got a long way to go to make sure that all the lives inside of our communities, from our babies to our elders, are actually being protected.
Randy?
Yeah, I don't think people realize, we think so highly of the United States, which we should, but what is it? Over 30 million households are affected by water that is not up to standards, not up to safety codes. So it is important.
And in fact, Randy, there are literally 2 million Americans who don't have running water.
Right.
Like, we think everybody has running water. They don't.
They do not. They do not. And that's what I don't think people realize, that it is at a crisis situation right here in the United States. And there are certain counties that have like 30% of people been affected by things like ringworm, just as the vice president was talking. So I am happy to see something being done. It's much needed. And and a lot of this money, from what I'm seeing, is going to help the Black communities, because that's unfortunately the communities that have been ignored. I mean, unfortunately, sometimes we are the ones that are underserved and last served.
Yeah, I mean, again, you got people who step out here and they say stuff all the time, on social media. They say these things, oh, nothing is being done, nothing is happening, and it's a lie. Now, there's a difference between saying these things are happening and I believe more should be done, but to say nothing is happening is simply a lie. Period. All right, hold on a second. Go to a break. We come back. Neo-Nazis marching in Nashville. I'm quite sure they're supporting the Tennessee Republicans there, who are doing all they can to shut down dissent and those who disagree with him. We're joined by State Rep Gloria Johnson, who joins us next on Roland Martin Unfiltered, right here on the Black Star Network. Don't forget, support us in what we do. Join the Brandon Fuck Fan Club. Send your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. We look at one of the most influential and prominent Black Americans of the 20th century. His work literally changed the world. Among other things, he played a major role in creating the United Nations. He was the first African American and first person of color to win the Nobel Peace Prize. And yet today, he is hardly a household name. We're talking, of course, about Ralph J. Bunche. A new book refers to him as the absolutely indispensable man.
His lifelong interest and passion in racial justice, specifically in the form of colonialism. And he saw his work as an activist and advocate for the Black community here in the United States as just the other side of the coin of his work trying to roll back European empire in Africa.
Author Cal Rostiala will join us to share his incredible story. That's on the next Black Table, here on the Black Star Network.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Hello, I'm Jamia Pugh. I am from Coatesville, Pennsylvania, just an hour right outside of Philadelphia.
My name is Jasmine Pugh. I'm also from Coatesville, Pennsylvania.
You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay right here.
Sunday in Nashville, a group of masked people, neo-Nazis, marched through the streets with their faces covered and carrying swastika flags. The Anti-Defamation League told a local affiliate they believe the group was mainly composed of members of the extremist Blood Tribe group, but also had members of the Vinland Rebels. The Blood Tribe marched under the swastika and looks to add shock value, yet want to normalize the symbol. Why are they in Nashville? Well, State Representative Justin Jones posted this video when he saw them at the Capitol.
They are literally having a Nazi march, here in downtown Nashville. White supremacists talking about white supremacist neo-Nazism, talking about deporting folks and just racial hatred. This is what we're seeing here in Nashville.
Joining me now is State Representative Gloria Johnson of Tennessee. Glad to have you back on the show. Look, let's just be honest. We've seen a resurgence of these groups as Donald Trump burst onto the national scene and occupied the Oval Office. You'll never hear me call him president, ever. And the reality is, what Donald Trump has done is give cover to these races, these white nationalists, and they now understand there's no blowback.
Absolutely. Since Donald Trump slithered down that escalator, we have seen an increase in hate crimes and an increase in these groups. You know, Tennessee, the KKK started here, unfortunately, and we've seen a lot of these groups. We've seen an increase in their showing up. But, you know, you want to ask why? Probably from the racist dog whistle calls from our governor and the Tennessee legislature, quite frankly. I mean, I had a member in my criminal justice committee advocate for bringing back lynching. He didn't say hanging by a gallows. He said lynching.
Right. Right. Well, look what just happened there, where Representative Jones introduces a resolution to publicly praise two Tennesseans, one white, one black. Right. The legislature approved the resolution for the white Grammy winner, but refuses to approve the one for the black Grammy winner.
Absolutely. And we see this kind of thing all the time. We had a resolution for a young teenager who had been killed, who was very important in her community, was also black, and we saw her resolution be killed as well. You know, I have to say, when that happens, typically that's where we are. It's an issue of race. It is disgusting to me that someone so brilliantly talented as Allison Russell, and getting this first Grammy and trying to recognize that, would be an impetus for them to stop recognizing her. It's just remarkable. We had a same situation. Representative Jones had another resolution last year, I believe, yes, recognizing an elder from the civil rights movement. And they objected to the fact that it said in there that he was oppressed. This gentleman was 90 years old. You can guarantee, we know for a fact, there was oppression. There still is. But they wanted to deny the oppression that he grew up with, and they didn't like the word oppression, so they killed that resolution. You know, they expelled two black members. There's no question in what we're seeing. We see it every day in this house. There's not a day that goes by that we don't see their true colors. They're on display for the world to see, and the world is watching. The world is really watching them. Tennessee's time is coming. Tennessee will rise, and I can assure you that.
Unbelievable. Question for my panel. Randy, you're first.
So what was your reaction? I mean, were you there when you saw these Nazis who, they claim they're so bold, but they always have to cover up their faces? I know, were you present when that was going on?
I was actually in Nashville. I was traveling between Wilson County and Memphis, but I'd stopped in Nashville, and I heard about it while I was there. And here's the thing that really got me and hit me so hard. I was with a friend of mine who is black, and I said, let's go out and find them. You know, I wanted to be present, and I wanted to say something to them, quite frankly. And my friends didn't want any part of it because that made them nervous. And that is exactly, these are terrorists. That is exactly why they are out there. They are out there to terrorize people. Today in committee, we had a bill where one of our Republican members wanted to do something about foreign terrorism. And I said, what about, can we add domestic terrorism? Can we talk about the Nazis that were in Nashville instead of these folks you think are coming over here? They absolutely refused to include Nazis.
I'm sure. And was the crowd? How was the crowd's reaction? Did some people fight back? Because I know they said they were challenged at one point.
Oh yes, people were yelling at them and calling them cowards. That's the thing that's so funny. You know, they do hide their faces, so that means you are a coward. If you're so proud of your beliefs, why are you covering your face? Because you are a coward. These people are nothing if not cowards and quite frankly, just ignorant.
Mustafa.
Agreed.
Representative, thank you for the work that you've done. I'm good friends with Justin Pearson, so I've been paying attention to what goes on in Tennessee. I'm curious. You know, we've called out the words of domestic terrorism. You know, we know that folks are cowards, all these different types of things. How do we get the majority of the good folks in Tennessee to realize that it's time for a new day? It's time for us to not only put the laws in place, but to make sure in our own personal lives that we are evolving into the 21st century.
Yeah, and people like me, we need to not only be an ally, but we need to be co-conspirators. We need to make sure that we are standing up and fighting against this. You know, one thing that I'm seeing people stepping up in Tennessee, and it started when, you know, we saw a really increase when we went to the well, and people saw just that blatant racism of expelling the 2 young black men, but not expelling the white woman. And then it's just continued. We had an election in Williamson County, and there was a woman running for office who literally had her security at her events were people that were self-proclaimed neo-Nazis. And Williamson County is a real red county. It's the wealthiest county in Tennessee. But that county did not like those folks. And thank goodness that woman got beat 80-20. I think she should have been beat 99-1, but she wasn't. But 80-20 is pretty amazing in Williamson County. So Tennesseans are waking up. They are hating what they see. Those folks dogged them all the way down the street and everywhere they were. They were not given a pass, and people present didn't act afraid of them. But we really do. I heard that this particular group was run out of maybe Maine. I can't remember the state. I'm going to dig into it. I want to see how they got rid of these folks. Because what we need to do, since we have a supermajority and a governor that kind of talks about everything they fight about. This particular group has been fighting against LGBTQ community. And quite frankly, Tennessee has enacted 19 anti-LGBTQ laws, and we're sending them the message that the supermajority is with them. And Tennessee has passed a bill that has kept Jewish families from adopting. They say they love Israel, but they have written a bill that prevents Jewish people from adopting. And we've seen an uptick in anti-Semitic flyers in driveways of people in Nashville. It's outrageous that this is happening, and so many people are not taking it seriously.
Did Senator Marsha Blackburn release any kind of statements condemning these neo-Nazis?
I saw a tweet today that said MAGA. So to my knowledge, she has not said anything, but I don't follow all her social media. I don't have time. I've had a crazy day with crazy legislation. I will check and see, but to my knowledge, she hasn't said a word. And it's funny, the Republicans in Tennessee that have said something about it only refer to the Nazis' hate of our Jewish Americans, which is serious and has to be stopped. But these folks are not going just after one group. They're going after every group that isn't them.
Wow. Well, we definitely see that. Then, of course, you also have this Tennessee congressman who is going to have some explaining to do for putting out this photo of a black man as the shooter in Kansas City when he was not even a suspect.
And sadly, that's my congressman. That's a guy that I've known since high school. And I don't know what's happened to him, but that is a tragedy that an elected congressperson can demean and go after someone and call them things that they know nothing about, that aren't true, and leave it up for 4 days and do nothing about it.
And then
not even apologize. When he took it down,
he blamed the
didn't
media.
Apologize.
He blamed the media.
No, it's his fault. It's not the media's fault. It's not anybody's fault. That was a post by, that was not the media's fault. He should have waited for facts. But he doesn't care about facts because facts don't back up his bias.
Well, but again, when Donald Trump is their patron saint, well, that's exactly what you're going to see happen.
It is what you're going to see happen. And I just think about the danger that they could have put that man and his family in.
Yep. Right. Absolutely.
Unbelievable. That is so reckless.
Indeed, indeed. If folks want to support your campaign for United States Senator, where do they go?
VoteGloriaJohnson.com. Would love to have you on board. We're going to make a change in Tennessee. Tennessee will rise.
All right. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Folks, we come back. We told y'all the hardcore MAGA Republican Jeff Landry, when he became governor, it was going to be rough for black people. Wait till I tell you what they're trying to do. A massive number of criminal bills, and he's targeting New Orleans. We tried to tell you. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Sun Network.
You heard why we're marching, and it's really a launch. It's not even a march. We're launching.
That's right.
A 42-week campaign. March the 2nd at 10 o'clock in Raleigh and 33 other state capitals and the District of Columbia. This is a historic move to mobilize the most powerful untapped block of voters in this country. That's right. Poor and low wealth voters who make up 87 million votes. And it's never been tried before. Never been tried before in history. At the same time, same message, same focus. And when that power turns loose, they will not be able to figure out the political calculus. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to shake things up. I'm ready to get up out of the valley. I'm ready for God to put his spirit on us. I'm ready to be used to change this nation. And what we're saying is, can't we come together? Can't we come together around an agenda? You ain't got to like everything about Reverend Barber. You don't have to like everything about Sangria. You don't have to like everything about Long Choir. But can we come together and say, it's time to end poverty as the fourth leading cause of death? It's time to have $15 and a living wage indexed with inflation. So every time inflation goes up, the minimum wage goes up. It's time to have health care for all. It's time to fully fund public education. Can't we come together? It's time to protect women's right to women's health. It's time to have affordable housing for everybody. It's time to stop the proliferation of guns. Ain't no way folk ought to be able to have more guns than they have food, more guns than they have meat on their table. That makes no sense. Isn't it time for division to be ended and love to take over? Can't we organize around that? Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I don't need to like everything about you, but can't we organize for power? Can't we stand for justice? Can't we love everybody for just a little while? Can't we come up out of the valley? Can these bones live?
Hello, we're the Critter Fixers. I'm Dr. Bernard Hodges.
And I'm Dr. Terrence Ferguson.
And you're tuned in to
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Folks, Louisiana Republican MAGA Governor Jeff Landry called a special legislative session to consider new criminal justice bills. Now, this is the same guy who was Attorney General, who was a hardcore law and order. You know, the dude who also tried to unveil the juvenile records of folks, in only 2 counties, the black ones? The session will consider several measures, including the death penalty method expansion, parole restrictions, repeal raise the age law, tougher penalties, legal protection for police, and concealed carry. Yeah, they even tried to do 30 bills today, y'all. Joining me now from Baton Rouge, State Representative Edmund Jordan. Representative Jordan, glad to have you here. Like, what the hell? I mean, Jeff Landry is acting like the entire state of Louisiana, which is one of the biggest states when it comes to imprisoning people, has just gone mad, and you've got to just have massive crime laws.
Well, look, Roland, after, in 2017, after we were the incarceration capital of the world, we passed some justice reform measures that took that title away from us. But soon, if these bills pass, which I can tell you a lot of people anticipate that they will, we'll be right back where we were prior to 2017.
And this is the thing that I kept saying during the election, hey, folks, when you don't vote, look what happens. Louisiana Republicans now have a supermajority in the House and the Senate, correct?
That is correct.
So they can do whatever. They don't even care. They don't even care what Democrats have to say. They can just run the table, send it to a Republican governor. He's going to sign it.
Well, look, let me give you an example of what happened yesterday. So really what should happen, bills get introduced, and then we say that they have to lie over, which means they're supposed to lie over like 3 days and then before they can be heard in committee and they move forward. Well, they did a suspension of the rules. To do a suspension of the rules, you need a 2/3 majority to do that. And so because they have that supermajority, which is the 2/3, they were able to do that. And instead of waiting those days, they were able to have those bills heard in committee today. And then they'll try to suspend the rules again to bring them to the floor.
And what we're talking about here, again, he is pretending as if there is just this massive crime surge across Louisiana. He's targeting New Orleans, but it's a lie.
Yeah, and look, if you look at the legislative auditor, who is an independent body, he's nonpartisan, and so not affiliated with any political party. The Louisiana legislative auditor came out with a report this month that says that the justice reform measures are doing exactly what they were intended to do. Violent criminals, you have more violent criminals now that are in prison than before the reforms, but the nonviolent ones have been released and saving the state money and bringing these people back to their families, just what it was intended to do. And now we're going to go and reverse all of that. We're going to have nonviolent criminals taking up prison beds, costing the taxpayers money. So even if you're a fiscal conservative, you should not be in favor of this because it's going to cost us more money and we're going to have more people incarcerated.
Again, it just goes to show you, I keep saying, when we stay at home, you see what happens. And all y'all who are watching and listening, I keep telling y'all, Republicans right now control the House. If Republicans get control of the Senate, and if folks sit at home and Trump is elected again, what y'all see in Louisiana, what you've seen in Florida, what you see in Alabama, what you see in Mississippi, what you see in Tennessee, multiply that by 100, and that's how bad it's going to be.
Let me tell you even something even worse than that, Roland. You know, one thing in Louisiana, of course, you talked about the death penalty. Louisiana is one of the top 5 states for wrongful convictions and having people exonerated. So when you expedite the manner in somebody being executed, what's going to happen? Ultimately, I can assure you that some of those people that are being executed are innocent. I'm not going to say all of them, but some of them certainly are. And so 20 years from now, we'll find out that those people were innocent, but it'll be too late. The other thing is this. Louisiana also leads the nation in having people in prison pass their release date. We can't even calculate the release date correctly. Like I say, when you owe a debt to society and you commit a crime, you're in prison. Once you've paid your debt and they hold you past that, you're enslaved. And so we have people that have been staying months beyond their release date because we can't calculate their release date correctly. So, you know, there are a bunch of issues that we got going on here right now.
Questions. Mustafa, you first.
Well, Representative, thank you for everything that you're doing. I'm curious, how do everyday folks who are not living in Louisiana get engaged and be supportive of the changes that we need to make sure happen back home where you are?
Well, look, one thing I would tell you, one good thing that we have, all our sessions, committee meetings, all those things are live streamed and they're archived. And so if you want to go, for instance, if you want to go see what happened today, go to legis.la.gov, or you can go to house.louisiana.gov for the House side. On the Senate side, it's senate.la.gov. Those websites, you can find all the committee meetings. You can find all the chamber meetings as well. So that gives you just a baseline. If you actually want to see what's going on, you can do that. The other thing I would tell you is reach out to your officials. If you're from Louisiana, and you can go on, type in your old home address if you're living out of state, and you can find out who that legislator is, who your rep is, who your senator would be. Send them messages, especially these Republicans, man, because I'm going to tell you right now, not all of them come from these far right-wing districts. But because they feel like they have to kowtow to the governor right now, they're just all falling in line lockstep.
Randy.
I'm very concerned about these bills that are up to protect the police officers, where it seems like it should be going the opposite way, where police officers should be held accountable, particularly when we see some of the travesties that have happened in Louisiana itself. I mean, what specifically are they wanting? What freedoms are they wanting to give the police officers?
Well, look, in the last 2 years, I've brought bills to end qualified immunity in Louisiana, and I'm familiar with that one. But what they're trying to do is not have this as qualified immunity. They're really trying to have this as absolute immunity, because they're saying that a peace officer, a police officer, can't be held civilly liable unless the conduct was fraudulent, intentional, and there's one other one, but it's ridiculous. So what I would tell you is this: the things that they want to do is, for instance, let's take the Ronald Green matter. Those officers, you wouldn't even be able to bring a civil suit against them right now if that bill was in place, because the way that this thing is drafted, they're going to have absolute immunity. Now, that's in state court. Now, if you still want to bring a federal claim, you could bring a federal claim. But as it relates to state court claims, you would not be able to do that at all, because the standard and the burden would be so high, no plaintiff could ever meet it. So I would tell you, we've had Andre Bowman, we've had Ronald Green, we've had Alton Sterling. All these cases that you've heard about, you would not be able to bring a civil claim in state court based on what this statute does.
Thank you for that.
All right, then. Well, Representative Jordan, keep us abreast of what happens there. Again, keep up the fight. It's difficult, but again, this is what happens when folks stay at home and they let a MAGA Republican and a MAGA legislature be able to hold all the cards.
Well, Roland, let me just say one last thing. Right now we have an opportunity to take $71 million to feed children this summer. It's going to take $3.5 million from the state to get $71 million in matching funds. And right now, the governor and his administration is refusing that. So throw that on top of everything else.
But they call themselves pro-life.
There you go.
And they call themselves religious conservatives, and they care about the poor. And they're turning their back on money for food for children.
Absolutely.
All right. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Folks, I told you, I mean, this is, look, I can't tell you even more, and we're going to keep doing it. But for all y'all people who say voting doesn't matter, here you go. Here you go. We tell y'all repeatedly why voting matters. Because the people who win, depending upon who wins, they are going to now be in charge of the policy. And a lot of black people sat at home in Louisiana, did not vote. You had a brother who was running for the Democratic nomination for governor. And folks didn't vote. And Landry, again, this man, y'all, literally tried to get past a bill to unseal the juvenile records in 2 parishes with the highest black percentage. He was targeting black people. So Jeff Landry was very clear what he was going to do. But when folks sit at home or they sit here and say, yeah, you know, all y'all running around talking about Trump, and I don't like, I'm Biden too old, they ain't done this. I'm telling y'all right now, what's coming down. In fact, I was on Politico earlier today, and I saw this story where literally one of the Republicans has made it clear that they are, here it is. Trump, let me pull this up. I want y'all to see this. See, some of y'all think I'm lying. See, some of y'all think this is the game until it's not. Trump allies prepare to infuse Christian nationalism in second administration. Spearheading the effort is Russell Vought, president of the Center for Renewing America, part of a conservative consortium preparing for Trump's return to power. You sit here and you see the article, and they believe, Christian nationalists in America believe that the country was founded as a Christian nation and that Christian values should be prioritized throughout government and public life. As the country has become less religious and more diverse, Vought has embraced the idea that Christians are under assault and has spoken of policies he might pursue in response. I want y'all to see this here. One document drafted by CRA staff and fellows includes a list of top priorities for CRA in a second Trump term. Christian nationalism is one of the bullet points. Others include, listen to me carefully, invoking the Insurrection Act on day one to quash protest, and refusing to spend authorized congressional funds on unwanted projects, a practice banned by lawmakers in the Nixon era. Now, later, Mustafa, I'm going to do a whole show on Project 2025. Mm-hmm. But all these black folks I see here commenting on social media and, yeah, man, I'm brothers for Trump and all this sort of stuff like this here. Oh, y'all going to be in for a rude awakening.
Yeah, they will pimp you and use you until they no longer need you. And that's just the dynamic that's going on. I'm so glad you are one of the few places. Every time I go somewhere, I tell folks, read Project 2025. They're telling you exactly who they are and what they plan on doing. And folks, I don't know if it's that folks just are afraid to read in our country, or folks are just so busy that they can't invest a few minutes in actually figuring out what the next decade is going to look like if, these folks who care nothing about you get into office. So I really hope that folks will start to think strategically about using their power. Of course, their vote is a part of that power. And how do you bring real resources into our community? You know, the vote is how you do that. And making sure that you have the right people, of course, who are in office. So we have to make sure that we're figuring out that part of the equation. But if folks don't pay attention to what's happening, I promise you, and I've worked in over 1,000 communities now, you will have housing that will not be habitable for our communities because we know we have that shrinking housing stock. There will not be resources going to help Black businesses to get started. I promise you, and I wish this was not true, that you will have more deadly pollution inside of your communities. So your babies and your children will be impacted. I can go down the laundry list of things that these folks have been very clear about what they are going to disinvest in. And 99 times out of 100, it is linked to Black and brown and lower wealth communities. So folks better wake up and just spend a little bit of time and educating yourself. I never tell anybody who to vote for, but I say vote for somebody who cares about you, who cares about your community. And if you just read, I'm not asking you to take my word for it. I'm not asking you to take, somebody else who you might see on TV's word for it. I'm just saying, do the research for yourself and make sure that you're educated and having conversations with your family and your community about what will be helpful and beneficial. And if you don't like one person who's a part of, an administration, there's a whole lot of other people who will be there, who hopefully we can ensure that they're folks who care about our community. But it starts with you as the individual, educating yourself and making the best decision for yourself. Don't just don't disconnect. Get engaged. Push people to do the right thing, and then we'll move forward from there.
Randy?
It's almost as if some people think they're being provocative or something when they say they're going to really look and vote for this other administration that has not, we talk about reading, which they should absolutely do, but reflect. I mean, pay attention to what happened when certain people were in office and how it served us as a people. I mean, very clear. But then they're saying, this is what we're going to do. We cannot knock these Republicans, particularly the conservative Republicans. We can't knock them for not saying they don't have a plan. They have had a plan, and we are not a part of it. Right? Black people, Black and brown people are nowhere included in the plan. Basically, if you're not white, Christian, heterosexual, and male, they have made it clear that they are not working for your benefit. So I don't understand why we're even having to have this conversation anymore. They applied for a job. Some of us, we somehow let them slip and get the job, and they showed us what they were going to do. And so that we would even consider allowing them the opportunity to do it again when they'll have far more license then is just insane to me.
All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. I got to go to a break. We'll be right back. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Support the Black Star Network by joining our Bring the Fuck Fan Club. Senior Chicken Money. Order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash out, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds. As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
On A Next A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie, we're talking all things mental health and how helping others can help you. We all have moments where we have struggles, and on this week's show, our guests demonstrate how helping others can also help you. Why you should never stop giving and serving others on A Next A Balanced Life here on Black Star Network.
Hi, I am Tommy Davidson. I play Oscar on Proud Family, Louder and Prouder. I don't play Sammy, but I could. Or I don't play Obama, but I could. I don't do Stallone, but I could do all that. And I am here with Roland Martin on Unfiltered.
The Poor People's Campaign launched a 40-week operation to really bring together, mobilize, and organize the voting power of poor people across the nation. Today, in Raleigh, North Carolina, in front of the state legislative building, the North Carolina sector of the Poor People's Campaign announced its involvement in the Moral March to the Polls tour. The campaign hopes that 7,000 volunteers will mobilize 15 million low-income and poor voters nationwide for this year's election.
We are here today to stand together with poor and low-wage workers to declare that poverty is the fourth leading cause of death in these United States. There are over 135 million poor and low-wage workers in this nation. 800 people die every day because of poverty, but we also realize that poverty is a policy choice. We realize that poverty is a policy choice, and we're here today to demand that things change and legislations change.
I'm here now for low wages, which low wages is a struggle with housing combined together. That many of us are struggling in our community and everywhere in the United States from low wages and housing. And we are suffering. And I'm also a healthcare worker. I worked the pandemic and I worked for over 5 years making $11 an hour as an essential worker. I worked through pandemic. I worked when hospitals called. I worked when families called. I worked when no one wouldn't work, and I still stayed at $11 an hour no matter how hard I worked. So just the wages, and I'm seeing poverty with housing. I wasn't able to keep a stable in housing, but having to work so many hours, I'm missing so much life with my daughter, and my father is struggling now with dementia. And it hurts me so bad. I'm losing hour and minute by minute, and things are so different day to day as I come home. He's forgetting more, and it's just taking a lifetime toll out of me, and I'm sure everyone else. So I'm looking forward to seeing everyone and many more on March the 2nd.
The first major coordinated actions will take place outside of 30 state houses on March 2nd. Mustafa, the reason I like what Reverend Dr. Barber, what they are doing with repairs of the breach, Poor People's Campaign, is they understand you gotta be able to touch people, it has to be mobilized, has to be organized. You know, I've always complained about folks when they have protests, and I always ask, are you doing data collection? Who's showing up? Who's gonna be there? And so they've run the numbers, and they believe that these 15 million voters could be the key to who wins in November.
Yeah, and once again, you know, that's the beauty of this show also is that we actually break down, you know, we've gone through the sets of elections that have happened and how narrow in many instances the margin of victory has been. And in those instances when folks actually, you know, lost, how if just a handful of more folks came out and voted, how that could dramatically change what's going on. So Dr. Barber and all the folks who are there with him, you know, understand, one, that folks got to see themselves reflected in the change. So they're talking about issues that so many people care about, and that folks know that if they just get engaged, that they can actually win on these issues. They can win on making sure that they get a fair wage. You know, they can win on a number of these other issues. And I just appreciate everything that they're doing. The other thing that, of course, I appreciate and some folks don't appreciate is that he's actually building a coalition of individuals together. The same thing that Dr. King did. So we have this moment when we can actually really move the direction of this country in a way that so many people say they want it to move, but folks just haven't put the energy into it. So I appreciate the strategy, and I also appreciate the coalition that's being built.
Randy, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it's going to require. And what they're doing is, like I was over the weekend, I was talking to somebody, and somebody told me, they said, hey, you know, I think that from a standpoint, protests no longer matters. And I've even heard Derek Johnson, the head of the NAACP, call protest performative. I disagree. I believe protest with no plan is performative. But I believe when you have protest and they serve a purpose to raise awareness, to enlighten people, and then you build upon that, it matters. And so what they do with the Poor People's Campaign, they don't just go out there we're just going to walk around with signs. I mean, there's strategy involved, and I love how they're not calling for a mass demonstration in D.C. on a Saturday. They're like, no, focus on your states, because the reality is the presidential election is really a series of state elections.
And I appreciate how they're talking to the people, directly to the people, like saying what we care about, which I think is very smart. Everybody does deserve to live. Everybody deserves to be able to earn a living, decent wage. And I think that speaks to people, and they can relate to it, and they can get behind it. It's something that would be difficult to argue against it. But then they go a step further and say, this is designed by policy. And so making people understand that we do have to engage with the government in order to create a country and a life that we all want and deserve. So I respect how they're going about it.
Yeah, and so again, you got to organize, you got to mobilize, you got to understand how to pull people together, and that is necessary. And so I think that a lot of people just don't spend enough time on that. All right, folks, 2 adult men have been charged with murder in last week's shooting that killed 1 person and injured 22 others after the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade. Jackson County prosecutor Gene Peters Baker says the men are charged with second-degree murder and other charges. The pair have been hospitalized since the shooting. These charges come after 2 juveniles were detained last week on gun-related and resisting arrest charges. Authorities said more charges are possible. Police say a dispute among several people led to the shooting and left, again, 22 people injured, ranging in age from 8 to 47. Lisa Lopez Galvin, a mother of 2, and the host of Taste of Tejano, radio DJ, she was killed. For the first time since the 1970s, Wisconsin Republicans and Democrats have adopted new legislative boundaries before the courts did it for them. Governor Tony Evers signed into law the maps the Republican-controlled legislature passed, which could dramatically shift Wisconsin's political landscape by weakening the GOP's hold on the state Senate and Assembly. Republicans say that they had little choice as the liberal-controlled Wisconsin Supreme Court was poised to select maps that could have been even more unfavorable to them. But Evers said the maps are the will of the people.
Wisconsinites want fair maps, and Wisconsinites deserve fair maps. So today, Wisconsinites, I'm enacting fair maps for the great state of Wisconsin. This will be the first time in over 50 years that Wisconsin will have fair legislative maps enacted through the legislative process rather than through the courts. These maps will take effect immediately after publication and will be in place for the fall elections, providing certainty for candidates and campaigns that are gearing up to circulate nomination papers for this spring. I will also be asking the Wisconsin Supreme Court to clarify that these maps will be in place for any special elections that occur between now and the fall. maps that I'm signing today are fair, responsive, and reflect the will of the people.
Let me say it again. Voting matters. If folks don't go to the polls and elect Potasiewicz, the Democrat to the Supreme Court, this ain't happening, Randy. This ain't happening. And so this is what happens when voting takes place. I swear, I keep trying to tell people, if you're pissed off about gerrymandering, if you're mad about this here, you got to understand you got to vote in Supreme Court races. If you're mad about the policy on a state level, you got to vote with state rep and state senate. So all these things matter. And so I want to slap the shit out of any person when they go, oh my God, voting is a waste. We've never gotten anything with voting. I'm like, damn, are you idiots?
And yet they seem to think that their comments on social media matter, right? I tell people, like, okay, take that anger that you're displaying and you're taking the time out to do all these things on social media, under people's Facebook posts and tweeting and all of this, and actually take it to the polls. Because that's the only place that we have real power, and that your opinion is actually counted.
Man, the thing is, Mustafa, again, voting is not the be-all to end-all. It's not. But to act as if we cannot impact politics and policy through our vote is just insane. We're seeing it. This does not happen. Republicans have a grip, a supermajority in the House and the Senate in Wisconsin. Wisconsin elected a Democrat, Tony Evers, to be the governor. Mandela Barnes was lieutenant governor before he ran for the United States Senate. They stripped Evers of a lot of his power. They stripped power from the state attorney general because they control all the legislation, because they had a supermajority. How do they have a supermajority? Gerrymandered seats. Now the courts changed it. Now you're going to have a fair state election. Imagine if we had evenly split and fair elections in Texas, Florida, Alabama, Tennessee. What we're seeing in Wisconsin is what could happen other places if folks use their power.
Yeah, and to be fair, people say the Wisconsin Supreme Court is a progressive court. It is a common sense court. And that means that when you're sitting down and you're thinking about many of these issues, you're probably looking at it through a common sense lens and asking the question, why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we make sure that women have the autonomy over their body? Why wouldn't we make sure that if somebody is going out and working hard, that they're getting paid honestly for the work that they're doing? Why wouldn't we make sure that somebody could live in healthy housing? Why wouldn't we make sure that folks can breathe clean air and drink clean water? So all those things and many others are tied to our vote. So we have to start to use our common sense and then insist that the people that we vote for use common sense, and that they're creating common sense legislation. They've got common sense gun reform. They've got common sense ability for you to have good housing, so forth and so on. So our vote is tied to all of that. But for me, it's about common sense, about making sure that folks have the basic amenities. But folks can't have the basic amenities if we don't vote, because there are people who are going to try and hoard power. There are people who, when they can hoard power, then can hoard resources. And we can change that dynamic. But that means that we got to vote. But we got to vote because we're educated and because we are coming together as a community to say, these are the things that our community deserve. And then we have to demand it. And a part of demanding that is utilizing our vote to make it happen, and utilizing our vote to also hold people accountable once we put them in office.
And I'm telling you, Randy, I just want to when I look at some of these comments and I look at, man, ain't nothing changed. I'm like, what are you talking about? But guess what? If you do believe nothing has changed, change the people, you change the politics, you change the policy.
Mm-hmm. And when people say things like that, they have just decided to be hopeless. And that's very sad to me. I mean, to me, you're just saying to the world, I'm hopeless. I feel as if I have no power to make any change. And you've given up in a sense. And we are not a give up type of people. That's not who we are. So we just keep on pushing. And one of the ways we push, one of the big ways that we can push, is to get out there and vote. It matters. We see it time and time again what happens when we don't. And we need to vote for the people who will, are about our best interest.
Absolutely. Hey, folks, check this out, man. This is an absolutely crazy story out of Haiti. The widow of slain Haitian President Jovenel Moïse has been charged in connection with his assassination. Bartine Moïse, who was injured in the July 7, 2021 attack, is one of dozens of people charged following a 2-year investigation. According to a legal document, she is accused of complicity in criminal association. She calls the latest developments unjust arrest and what she said was a never-ending persecution. The 53-year-old president was killed at his private residence on the outskirts of the capital, Port-au-Prince, by a group of mainly Colombian mercenaries. That is a just wild story, and so we will continue to monitor what happens with that story. All right, folks, our Black and Missing. Folks, Desi Phillips has been missing from her Columbia, South Carolina home since February 8th. The 16-year-old is 5 feet 6 inches tall, weighs 120 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. Anyone with information about Desi Phillips is urged to call the Richland County, South Carolina Sheriff's Office at 803-576-3000, 803-576-3000. Man, I hate when we have to keep doing that, but the fact of the matter is, if we don't do that, trust me, mainstream media is not doing it. And there's a whole bunch of other black media not doing it as well. And matter of fact, also I saw this, let me pull this up. Give me a second. Ricky Smiley, I saw him post this here. And I was glad to see Ricky do that. There was a sister who has been missing as well. And I was on Twitter earlier today. Let's see here. It was a matter of fact, it was coming out of Houston, and there was a photo there. I'll try to pull it up, y'all. There was a 12-year-old missing. Well, actually, luckily, good. She's been found. So he posted this morning. There's a 12-year-old Tanya Jackson on the Waxahachie who has been found. It was an Amber Alert that went out. But y'all, it's rare that actually takes place with us. And so it's one of the reasons why we do our segment, Black and Missing. Y'all, please feel free to share that segment on your social media platforms because if word goes around, and you got to recognize, it's a whole bunch of these sisters, y'all, who come up missing, and there's a lot of us who are then placed in sex trafficking. And so when we spread these messages, we don't know where they could be. They could be in your city, in your town, and by you seeing it on here, being exposed to it, you could actually help somebody, son or daughter, found and return back to them. And so please do that. Y'all, that's it for us. Let me thank Randy. Let me thank Mustafa for being on today's show. Randy, what the hell is up with your cards? Did you get them in? When do you come on and talk about your damn cards?
In March. I think the second Tuesday of March.
Really?
I am. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, Randy a trip. Randy go try to jam me up several months ago about coming on about her cards. I'm like, all right, when you want to come on? Oh, hold up, I'm not ready yet. I was like, well, how you jamming me up then? I'm like, don't be jamming me up like you got your cards ready to ship and I ain't had you on. So so in March?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, we'll see. All right. All right, cool. Mustafa, Randy, I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Folks, don't forget, support us in what we do. Trust me, and y'all hear me say this here, and I'm going to say it every single day because it's true. It ain't no different than NPR, no different PBS, and stuff like that. Look, we need your support to do what we do. We want to hire more people. We want to have new shows. We want to keep expanding. It can't happen if we don't have the resources. That's also why when I'm calling out companies, when I'm calling out Big Pharma, I need y'all to comment on that. You know what? And again, I know how certain things attract people. I know how certain things hit. We discussed that. But you know what's crazy? I got an alert today. So y'all remember when I did that video about men sitting in restaurants and sitting with their back to the door? And man, let me tell y'all something. Folk was sitting here reposting that, commenting on that, and I got an alert today that told me that that thing had been seen by about 400,000 different accounts. And matter of fact, let me go in here. Let me do this here. Can I pull up right here? I'm gonna show y'all the insights. 1 second. I'm trying to find it. Okay, let's see. Insights. All right. So check this out. All right. So that video, sisters, do y'all know this rule? Reached 396,692 accounts. 60,000 real interactions. Also, y'all on YouTube, hit the like button, y'all. Hit the like button. Hopefully we're over. Man, y'all, how are we not at 1,000 likes? Y'all, hit the like button. I'm going to stay on here until we get 1,000. This don't make no sense. I'm out there doing this work. Y'all ain't hitting the doggone like button. Y'all commenting like crazy, but you ain't hitting the like button. Okay? So what we got here? 956. Herb getting to 1,000. So 573,000 plays. Okay? Replays. Watch time, 2,668 hours. Okay? Real interaction, 60,000. Likes, 37,500. Shares, 9,790 comments. Now I'm about to really blow y'all away. Monetization, 0. Monetization, 0. Now, when I post things on Instagram and Twitter and Fanbase and LinkedIn and all those platforms, talking about how much money we're not getting from Big Pharma, how much Big Pharma is not supporting black-owned media, how much automotive companies, how much PepsiCo, how much these ad agencies are not doing black-owned media. It sure as hell would be nice to see folks share that, like we did this one here. And I get it. People talked about it, comment. But y'all, this video that I did ain't earned us no money. 0 money. It's made Instagram money, 0 money. So when I'm talking about this, I'm trying to get you to understand why we need you commenting, why we need you speaking on it, even just saying hit the like button. Because when they see it got 300,000 views, and when they see it got almost 10,000 comments, they're gonna pay attention. And I keep telling y'all, $340 billion was spent last year on advertising, and all of black-owned media got 0.5 to 1%. We were getting 1% of the same money, y'all, 24 years ago when BET was sold. That's just real. So, your donations matter. Our goal is to raise $1 million from our fan base every year. If 20,000, just 20,000, look, we got, let me check right now. We got 1.217 million subscribers on YouTube right now. Some of y'all have recurring payments. We appreciate that. I got 3 or 4 people. I think Cheryl Dugan, Lisa Jenkins, they tithe every single month. Every month, I have gotten a check from them since we launched 5 years ago. So your support is crucial. If 20,000 of our fans contribute on average $50 each, that's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. You got this show, Faraji Muhammad's show, Deborah Owens, you got The Wellness Show with Jackie and Martin, you got Stephanie Humphreys, Entrepreneur Tech Talk, you got Greg Carr, you got Roland with Roland, and then we can add other shows. So that million is vital, y'all. I'm telling you it's vital for us to do what we do. So please do so. Senior check and money order, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. That's it. I'll see y'all tomorrow. From Nashville. Oh, Robert's guest hosting tomorrow. I'm speaking in Nashville. We're going to try to live stream it, but I'm definitely back here Thursday. Holla! Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?